Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Indies in Depth, the podcast taking a behind-the-scenes look at the indie game industry with the people who work in it. This episode we've got games journalist and co-host of the indie podcast, Indieventure, Rachel Watts. We also got the creative director and lead developer of Polygon Treehouse, Alex Kanaris-Sotiriou. This episode we're speaking about accessibility in games and how indie game developers can create a sense of place in their games as well. Also, how you interact with players or readers giving feedback of your work. As always, links to all the games mentioned and to my guests' work as well will be included in the show notes. Do check them out. If you like this podcast, do give it a like, drop me a subscribe, and also you can check me out playing some of these games that I mentioned on my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Cressup. Anyway, on with the show. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me. We got there in the end. We had a couple of false starts trying to get this video and everything working. So I appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with me today for Indies in Depth. We've got Alex Kanaris-Sotiriou, creative director, lead developer of Polygon Treehouse. And we've got Rachel Watts, games journalist extraordinaire for great publications, Edge, Games Radar. Of course, you've written for Rock, Paper, Shotgun as well in the past. Yes. And is heading up the far better and superior indie games podcast, Indieventure. I mean, that's just fact. No.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
But a big fan of that. So thank you, genuinely, so much, guys, for speaking to me. This is all about getting people in the sort of indie sphere and just having a chat with them, seeing what they're doing, seeing what they're making, and just finding out a bit more about their projects and also what they're enjoying as well. So to start off with that, I just want to know what you guys are both playing at the moment. Alex, do you have time to play much? I always feel a bit bad actually asking games developers this, because it's like, are you playing anything whilst also making a game?
Yes, I do actually still manage to play.
Well done.
I have like two windows. I have like a window immediately when I get up in the morning, and then the kind of window before I go to bed at night. So I've just finished Sea of Stars.
Nice.
But apparently I haven't quite finished. I thought I'd finished it, but apparently not. I think there might be some other bit. And now I've kind of moved on to Grapple Dogs. At the moment, I'm collecting loads of things, but I've kind of decided to start building up a bit of a Switch Indies collection. And so Grapple Dogs what I started, which just feels really tactile and squishy. It's got really great sound design and I try and play indies quite a lot. I haven't really played a big proper game for a while, but those are the two that I'm playing at the moment.
I'm guessing, if you only have a certain amount of time, it's probably good to just have an indie game that you can. Although indie games do seem to be getting a bit longer. I don't know. There seems to be a thing. I don't know. But yeah, Rachel, how about you? What kind of things are you playing?
I've been playing quite a lot just because of the nature of the job. But I started playing Flock today, and I wanted to play Flock for so long. It's the Hollow Ponds Richard Hogg game where you're basically riding a bird. For those who aren't aware, you're riding a bird, like a giant bird, and then you're collecting creatures that will follow, flying creatures that will follow you around in like a miniature bird army type situation. And it's just so wonderful. It's so whimsical. I'm
very
having
colourful.
Such a good time. So colourful. And you basically fly around. You have to charm each bird into to be friends with you, and then they kind of follow you around. And I'm just having a really good time. And that is a short indie, and I love short games. So I think I'm about halfway through, and I'm about 2 hours in. Okay. So I think I have another hour to go. Short, sweet. What a treat. I am loving Flock. Absolutely.
That's my God.
Grapple Dogs though is really good. Grapple Dogs is one that's I understand why it's a morning evening game, because you can just jump in, play a level, jump out again. I feel like that one's so overlooked. That's such a good game because they got DLC recently.
Yeah, I think they're wrapping up on the sequel as well. So
okay,
that might be it.
Yeah, I've been trying to get some the physical one. So actually, one of the games I'm playing have probably been out for a while digitally. So
And I've just finished, again, talking about short games, I've just finished Thank Goodness You're Here, which I really loved.
Yes!
The comedy kind of northern, what's it called? The slap slapformer game, which basically it's based in a sort of fictional northern town called Barnsworth. You're a little guy who's got to do loads of jobs for the town and just go about slapping people. It's got a really silly sense of humor. It's by Panic, who obviously did Untitled Goose Game. Well, it's published by Panic, but obviously the two guys who've made it are from Yorkshire. Lovely guys, and great game. It's only about 2.5 minutes, not 2.5 minutes, 2.5 hours. That would be an incredibly short game if it was 2.5 minutes. It could happen probably, but yeah, no, really great game. I'd recommend that one. And then the other
Big
one I'm
Ron.
playing is
just before you move on. Big Ron's Big Pies.
Yes,
incredible. Alex, I feel like you're gonna love this.
Alex
anyone
is
from
looking
the UK,
bemusingly.
Well, I'm
Big
from
Ron's
Yorkshire,
Big Pies.
so
That's
Now, which part
I
of
need to
Yorkshire?
I'm from Sheffield.
Ah,
originally.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't. There are. It's mainly. It's because it's funny. I played it on stream with a friend who's from Barnsley, and the two guys are from Barnsley.
Really?
And she was like, "There's some really niche references to Barnsley in this. It's like they've gone really super regional in it." But yeah, you should play it,
Amazing.
Alex.
Yeah, no, it definitely is on my list. Yeah.
And yeah, again, it's a very short game and really lovely and good fun and genuinely funny as well, which I think is kind of hard
Tough,
in a game.
really tough. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, yeah, this is not a new game, but I am also playing Doki Doki Literature Club. And I have not played that game before. I am well aware that it goes weird, but I don't know in what
how
way.
are you finding it?
So, okay, let me just say this. I am like maybe a third of the way through it at the moment.
Okay.
It hasn't gotten weird. There's been a little sort of glimpse of it maybe going a little bit weird. I'm sort of like at this point where I'm like, I need it to get weird now because otherwise it's just them talking about books.
Yeah.
I know why they do that, to try and build up to something happening.
Yes.
But I don't know, Alex, if you've played it or if you've heard of it.
No, I know. Obviously, I know the name.
Yes, please no spoilers, by the way. Please don't spoil it.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't really. Yeah, is it like a visual novel? Or is
Yes.
It,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just got this reputation. Everyone I mention it to are like, oh, that, yes. They're like, that game is effed up. Or people are like, that game goes really weird. And I'm like, how weird can it be? How weird can it be? But
I feel like you're just at the turning point. If you're that's what you're thinking. You're like, well, when is this going to happen? I feel like it's going to happen.
Can't wait to find
soon.
out. I am, and again, I'm streaming it, so I'm having to do all the voices for it as well. So that's getting quite.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. They don't necessarily. There's a Brummie. One of them's a Brummie. One of them's. Yeah, they don't. They don't necessarily fit. But anyway, yeah. So that's what I'm playing. I'm really looking forward to see what happens with that one. And in terms of what you guys are sort of, I mean, this might be a little bit similar with you, Rachel, but what are you guys working on at the moment? I guess I'll go with you, Rachel, first. Is there any kind of write-ups you're working on?
So I've just been doing a lot of reviews recently. Yeah. I reviewed the RTS Cataclysma recently, which is like the Lego building one. Very dark fantasy. Loved that. I also played Dungeons of Hinterberg recently, reviewed that.
Yes.
Love that as well. That is such a cool RPG, which is like set in like the Austrian Alps. Very cute. And my most recent one is The Crush House, which that game, the reality TV show one. Now that, if you love reality TV, you gotta play this game. Or you just love drama in games, or like,
how does it work?
It's so good. So the idea is you are a TV producer, you have your camera, and you are like running around a Malibu Barbie style house.
Love it.
And you have to capture the cast's fights, their intimate moments, and their conversations on camera, like a live stream.
Oh, okay.
And then when you start recording them, audiences will pop in with like requests and suggestions, and you have to like appease what they want to see.
Amazing.
And it is so funny. So like an example would be like the people who love drama want to see cat fights, or like there's like the plumbers who love seeing sinks, pools, anything with a filter. So the audiences get really niche, and like kind of same with Doki Doki as well. There's like a bit of a twist. There's a bit of a something else going on.
Okay, we love a twist.
Reality TV, oh, we love a twist. So I've really been enjoying that one. So if that sounds like anyone's like shit, you should definitely. Are we swearing?
Oh
are
yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah,
it's funny. Everyone always does that, and then like, wait, can I do that? It's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. It's
awesome.
Cool. I mean, don't go too crazy, but yeah.
Okay. So I've just been reviewing a lot. Nothing big at the moment, but yeah, that's just freelance life. So that's what I've been doing.
Nice. And Alex, obviously, you're working on your next game, Mythwrecked.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we're kind of on the finishing. Right, it's our second indie game after Röki, and you play as Alex, not me, a British backpacker who's shipwrecked on a lost Greek island and has to try and save the Greek gods. It's kind of a exploration, puzzly story game. No time pressure. Kind of like a conversation sandbox system, which is quite a little bit different from what we've been doing before. So the idea is a story, and the mystery is almost like a big marble block that you can have chisel away and reveal the kind of the mystery underneath and you've got lots of freedom to ask people about any topics you've discovered at any time. So we kind of, it's moving away from the modern point and click of Röki, but it's still 3D, still exploration. It's got a day and night cycle. But yeah, it's loads of fun with it. The characters are cool. The idea for the game came out of all the COVID lockdowns so we'd finished up Röki in the COVID lockdowns. And it's kind of a damning indictment on my life that it didn't really change my day-to-day life very much when we all had the lockdown. So we were just finishing off Röki, so that was quite sad. The opposite was all quite sad. But we started thinking about, you couldn't go anywhere, you couldn't see your friends or family, or like go see new places. So, what would a game be like where you get to go on a fantastical holiday and make some new friends, albeit slightly weird ones? So, the gods. It kind of came from there. So it's like building on. I think a lot of people will recognize the evolution of the art style from Röki, and the storytelling as well. So it's good. It's going well. I'm really excited to get it in people's hands later this year.
Oh,
yes.
I'll ask a little bit more about that in a moment. But I mean, you mentioned kind of like point and click, and obviously, I really. I'm a big fan of the adventure game genre. I know, Alex, you have mentioned how you kind of are quite a fan of that as well, and sort of Secret Monkey Island, I believe. Was that a bit of a sort of inspiration for you to get into making games?
Yeah, so I remember Secret Monkey Island specifically because my brother came back from a friend's house and he was describing this game to me where he was speaking to an old man on a cliff top and he was going to become a pirate. And I remember at the time we just played like quite, arcadey. I'm reasonably. You can see the pepper in my beard. So this is like we start off with a Commodore 64 and Amiga, and a lot of the games we were playing were quite like platformy or quite immediate things. So when he's saying this, it's like he's pulling my leg. That sounds like more like a film than like like a game. And then when we actually got our own copy and we were playing it, we were like, holy crap! Like video games can do this. They can tell a story. And so that was definitely like a real light bulb moment. So there's probably been quite a few games that have been like seminal in that. But Monkey Island, I mean, this you can sort of see everything behind me. But here I've got a Zach McCracken poster that's signed by David Fox and a load of Monkey Island bits and pieces. Definitely. And I really like the idea, having worked in when I worked at PlayStation, I made lots of shooty games, and so actually having games where you have no time pressure and a non-violent something when we went indie that was kind of important in kind of DNA of the studio and what kind of games you want to put out there. So I really like to focus on story and kind of like telling stories in maybe a kind of holistic way. I'm an art background, so that's always going to be our jumping off point. But I still absolutely love it. I think, and I'm in my 22nd year of making games professionally and still really enjoy it. So I started 2002.
Nice.
So it's a long time, but I have no complaints. Still absolutely love it.
Oh, that's nice to hear. That's you.
That is nice.
Sometimes you don't hear that much these days.
Wonder why.
Yes, quite. I mean, Rachel, how did you get into writing about games then? Was that something you always wanted to do, or how does that come about?
Yeah, so I studied film at university and I went on to do a master's, and I always kind of wanted to write about film. And then I saw there were no jobs. So I was like, what's my other second greatest passion? Oh, video games. And so I kind of just moved into video games because I obviously loved them. But yeah, there was like work there where film was just so stuffed with like competitive people. And so I started writing for a few blogs, and then eventually worked my way up as a staff writer and then an editor. And now I'm just freelance, which I'm really like happy to be doing. I'm so privileged that I have a good relationship with editors. So yeah, that's basically why I, not very poetic, but that's why I got into writing. And I think for me, it was when I started writing, which was like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was, I don't know, we were still having, I remember still reading articles about like whether video games were art or not. So it's still very much in that kind of, like in terms of approaching video games as like an art form, and like theoretically, like it was still very young.
Sure.
So it was just like, I don't know, the final frontier of like, wow, there's so much to like learn about and get into, and so much to discuss. And so that's what appealed to me as well. Whether with film, it was kind of all, it was a bit, it'd been going around for a long time, a bit stale, which I'm sure it isn't anymore. I've kind of been out of that scene for ages. But video games, it was so like new and lively and happening. And so, especially with video game writing, so I was like, yeah, this is where I belong now, and have always belonged since. And I also love it. I think writing about video games is just so great. I love it.
I think it. Do you not think it's wild? It's wild sometimes how like still media hasn't really caught up with like sort of mainstream media maybe, or like bigger publications that aren't just games focused. Maybe hasn't caught up with how big games are, and you kind of still have to convince people sometimes. I mean, sometimes they do get it, but I don't know. I always find it's like, I know it is, obviously it is still quite a young art form, really. It's kind of wild to think how young it is actually, and how quickly it's developed.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. But sometimes I am still like, guys, this is a huge medium. Come on, like I don't know.
Just seriously,
please. But yeah, I don't know. That's just something I always find. By the way, if either of you have questions for each other whilst I'm nattering away, feel free to ask questions as well, because I'm sure you'll have little things to add as well. It's very, as you probably realise, it's a very relaxed and informal thing. This,
yes.
it's very chill. But I was interested, Alex. You mentioned Röki, which I really, really loved. And I just
Me
loved
too, by the way.
I didn't want to say, have you played it, Rachel? Because in case you're like, no, I haven't. No, not played it at all. But yes,
Absolute
good.
Rubbish.
Thank you. I in my mind I was like, I'm not going to ask Rachel that, just in case, otherwise it's just a bit. But good, well done, big up, Rachel. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, with that, and I have to be honest here, Alex, when I first played it, I assumed it came from like a Scandinavian company. I assumed you guys, because of the sense of place and the sense of kind of that culture, and how you really it just felt like you really kind of got the sort of, obviously the fairy tale elements of it. It's not really set in a particular place. Am I right in remembering that? It's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we kind of just we knew we wanted to look at folklore. So it wasn't really like the gods like we're doing with Mythwrecked. It was we had this idea of like the losers, of like there's like the creepy people who live in like the forest, the lakes, and like the caves. So like and we kind of really cast our net wide and looked at all the stories, and then basically started to try and assemble a cast of characters and like who would contrast well. And so we definitely and like with the region, there's obviously various different versions of those tales anyway. So actually, for us to then create our own like cherry pick what we wanted. But I think we came up with a really good thing. But that's really it's really, really pleasing to know that we kind of did a good job with that kind of sense of place. And like the same with Mythwrecked, we used Scandinavian voice actors, like we used Greek voice actors for the god characters in Mythwrecked, and the characters aren't fully voiced, as you know, but I think even then with the sense of place, for me, it's about layering up little things rather than necessarily doing like big things. So actually, if you can have subtle accents even on like audio emotes, like grunt sounds and stuff, with the sound design, architecture, if you can layer up a number of different things. I think that's the way we like to like build up a sense of where you are. But there's definitely, and we had like a close Norwegian friend as well. So when we were checking out the name, like the name was originally going to be called Morco, and that was kind of like something we picked out. But I think when we checked it in with him, it basically broadly sounds like piece of crap. So maybe also possibly one of the Fraggles. It might be one of the Fraggles or like a Muppet or something. So we're like, okay, let's in Norwegian. So we're like, okay. So yeah, we definitely had sounding boards along the way. But yeah, no, it's obviously scary putting our first indie game out there and so it was really nice that the game was so well received. And yeah, we did recordings out in Oslo and went and did reference shoots and stuff. So, yeah.
So what with that point, because as you mentioned with the voice acting, it is you just hear them sort of say certain like phrases or things or their names. Was that kind of like a budget thing, or was that just kind of to get a sense without needing to without sort of needing to hear every dialogue option? Or I'm just interested why it works. It works very well, but.
Thanks. Well, yeah, so we approached it from quite a pragmatic point of view. So we originally did some tests with fully voice tests, and they've got a really great voice actress to help us out with some stuff. And we basically put them into a scene from the game and watched people play it, and they just clip, clip, clip. Basically people would clip through the dialogue lines because it's quite a lot of stuff. So we're like, okay, well, and that kind of broke the sense of immersion to us. And then also like looking at like budget wise, it's quite a text heavy game. I think like Röki was about 30, actually not as heavy as some, but I think it was about 36,000 words, and Mythwrecked about 45. But I think it probably would have, with sensible pants on, it would have probably doubled the budget of the game. Our game's a very very small budget, so I think like so that was another concern. But yeah, I think we tried and proved it out, and it's worked really well for us. Obviously, different strokes for different phases. And I also love playing like fully voiced games. I think also, if we're honest, we weren't that confident that if it was going to be a large amount of money, we weren't really that comfortable. We had the experience to kind of to pull it off. Like we're not voice directors or so I think we just kind of found something that we were more comfortable with. And also, I think it allows people to project onto the characters a little bit more, maybe, and imprint on them. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that must be difficult as an indie studio, because you are expected to, obviously, unless you hire someone in to do it for you, but not only are you dealing with the game itself and the design, but maybe the voice and the direction and, like you say, all that kind of thing that you might very well not have much experience with.
Yeah, I think you got to know like when to get help, and also just like when to like go, actually we won't do that, or we'll look at a different solution. So,
yeah.
So yeah, and that's the thing. I'm the kind of only full-time member on Mythwrecked, but we have like people who come on at various different points, and I think we got quite broad. I think from the time it's quite broad. So I do all the character animation, all the UI, a lot of we're kind of really hands-on. Yeah, there's definitely some bits where you're like, actually, I just don't feel like comfortable taking that on myself, and also you just there's too much stuff for one person to do on their own, so you need to get people involved.
Yeah.
And to,
I think that's fair.
pass them the football and let them run with it. So, yeah.
And I was trying to think of other indie games that do evoke a great setting. I mean, I don't know if either of you can think of others, because I think I just genuinely obviously it's interesting with Roki because it is a sort of, it's not a real, it's obviously this kind of fantasy sort of supernatural place, but it still did feel like it really worked in that respect. And I was trying to have a little think of others. I mean, weirdly, although again, it's not an actual place, but I think Cocoon, in a weird way, like that world just kind of worked for me, even though obviously it doesn't actually. Again, it's not a real place, but there was something about that I think just it all kind of, well, because that was part of the puzzle, it all fit in really well together, and it just kind of worked as a kind of area. But I don't know if either of you've got any that, you know, when you play, you're like, oh, this is just like a really great sort of world building, maybe.
Yeah, I think with Roki as well, with the sense of place, it's the mythology.
Yes.
I felt like as I was exploring, there was a sense of history and a sense of ancientness to different areas. And I think that is important when you want to create a sense of place within like a world. So something like the Outer Worlds, like it is space, but it's a different kind of space because there is a history to kind of learn and solve. And I think that is important. Another one that I thought of was Revachol from Disco Elysium. This kind of place that has so much history baked into it that even looking at one building, you can tell everything about that building because of how it looks, or the person standing outside talking to you like about it. Like, I think that is important. And with Cocoon, which is interesting that you bring that up, because now I'm thinking with that one, I feel like because it was so alien, right? So there really wasn't any sort of like history or like spoken, but there was a civilization mythology to it.
Yeah.
So I think that for me personally, like narrative wise, and like I like to feel that it is in the story, baked into the story. And I think good indie games understand that and do that really well. Yeah, Cocoon is so good.
It is, but I feel like with that, it's an interesting one because you are sort of looking for the story a bit. You're a bit like, what is going on here? And you do get a little bit of. I'm not going to like sort of spoil, but there's obviously a little bit of that at the ending. You're expecting a bit more. I think if you fully complete it, there's a little bit more that you see. But it was interesting that they did decide to leave that out and maybe just let the puzzles really speak for themselves, but still have this element. Because obviously it's a bit like, I guess, with maybe Inside, which is obviously from some of the developers of the Playdate. Not Playdate, is that right? I've forgotten the name of the developers. Yes. And that was similar with Inside. I think when you were playing that, you're like, what's going on here? Something's going on. But you couldn't quite tell, and you had to just keep playing the story just to finally work out what was happening.
I think that's something quite nice about games that with breathing space. Something we definitely breathe in, like when you're not just like wall to wall doing stuff. There's a bit of breathing space, and it allows you to kind of imprint it. Like some of my favorite games are very, very kind of not of this world, but like Ico, Trico, Shadow of the Colossus. They're like really kind of like you know, just roaming around, going, what is going on, and everything feels like it's got a bit of meaning to it all, especially with the Last Guardian. And like, there's always like, okay, there's kind of structure and hierarchy here. There's there's like, but obviously it's been there for a very long time. And I think, but having that breathing space as you're going around to allow you to kind of start to fill in the blanks was, I think that's one of the things. I think if you can, it's almost like a bargain with the player. You go like, okay, we'll drop things with you. And I think one of the things we tried to do with story stuff with Röki was to actually just set up kind of some contrasting things and allow people to kind of like fill in the gaps between them. So we had the relationship between Tuve and her mother, and the relationship between Röki and his mother, and so we just basically set up some things and basically didn't explicitly draw any contrast between them, but basically just it's almost like richness. You're kind of dropping breadcrumbs, and then it feels like a richer place. I guess there's also things like if somewhere a game world to feel like it has a sense of history, because you have the events that are happening now. Then actually, if you've got events that have happened at a different time, it's like, okay, it's not just now; it's got the past, and then suddenly your mind can just maybe extrapolate everything in between. So I think it's really interesting ways.
I guess I'm interested as well with Mythwrecked, because obviously you have this kind of sort of obviously this mythological element. You've this time it's the Greek gods, but how do you obviously take what there's that sort of part of it, the factual part of it, but also I'm guessing you're adding elements of I suppose elements that work with your game, if that makes sense. You're not just taking, you're trying to give a little bit of a twist or a change to the story, but how do you balance between that a little bit when you're creating something?
I think with Mythwrecked and the Greek gods, we basically took the original myths as a very much jumping off point, and the game is set in the present day,
right?
And the gods have been absent from the world for a while, so it's kind of the story of them now, and it's also like the myths or this thing in the distant past. But we use that very much wanted to kind of look at to be kind of have very human problems, even though they're gods, and actually, so
Yes.
Love it. Yes.
Ares has got he's got anger management issues. He can't communicate very well. He doesn't have those skills. Hephaestus is too consumed by his work and his crafting his inventions. Hermes is a very nervous, anxious person. So very much trying to I'm not really interested in like the old myths apart from as a jumping off point. And that was really interesting to look at. And again, in the same way as Röki, obviously there's loads of Greek gods, and looking at how who we wanted to contrast with each other, what aspects of modern life were we interested in exploring in their stories, and then looking at kind of what elements of their stories like hadn't really been considered, and could we kind of leverage them, whether it was in story or character design. So, for example, Hephaestus is in like an off-road wheelchair in our game. And it's kind of interesting. Look at all the kind of Hollywood films and stuff, and that kind of aspect of his original myth is never, really explored, and which is kind of like a bit crap, really. And so we got the idea of like designing him with like a really sturdy off-road wheelchair so he can get around, and just really wanted to look at his original stories and represent that in the game. And also why wouldn't you draw upon these things? I think
Sure,
when you're trying to build like a contrasting group of characters, so you look back at the old like Clash of the Titans and stuff, and you lined up all most of them are played by British actors anyway, but you couldn't be able to tell who's who. So we really want the characters to pop. And Hades has like blue skin in our game, and Ares has like red tin skin, so they're definitely like very modern interpretations. But I think looking at that, so mythology, when you look at what myths are, it's like something to make sense of the world that people were living in. And so actually, if we're making a game about mythology now, we should maybe try and make a little bit of sense to the world that we're living in now. So,
very poetic, Alex.
Yes.
I like that. I was interested as well, and I'll ask you about, in terms of Mythwrecked, and I know you've posted a little bit about creating more accessibility features in it, and I know you've spoken about this as well in a couple of talks, Alex, recently. I'll ask you about that in a sec, but Rachel, I was interested with you as a reviewer, when you're reviewing games. Is it? I mean, should reviewers be looking at accessibility features more when reviewing? Is it difficult, obviously, when there's so many other parts of a game to look at?
So it's interesting because when you write for an outlet, you kind of have to fit within their style guidelines and what they are looking for in review. So each outlet is different. For me personally, I always look out for accessibility stuff, especially with games these days, because it's so important. And it's becoming common practice, which we love to see. So certain outlets will have maybe an accessibility designated box on the side of their review. Other outlets don't mind as much, but like if you want to mention it as a reviewer, then you absolutely can. For me, it's very much if the game does have it and it is impactful, then I will mention it. If it doesn't, obviously I won't mention it, and I won't say like this game doesn't have this.
Yeah.
Obviously the criticism has to come first, but having these features is part of that.
Yeah.
We want games to be more accessible. Having certain features, well, obviously more people can play your game, which is better for everyone. So yeah, it's something I keep in mind, but honestly, it's outlet to outlet.
Yeah.
I think it is becoming more common practice now. Like readers want to know these details now. So yes, it is something I definitely look out for, and outlets should make more of an effort to do so as well, for sure.
And I guess with you, Alex, I was just interested. How have you implemented these accessibility features? I saw a tweet that you posted just about how you were looking into that a little bit more for Mythwrecked, and I guess what drove you, apart from obviously the obvious, to do that, and how have you gone about implementing it?
So I think we had like quite a bit of feedback from Röki, and there was a number of different areas. I think one was like button control remapping. That was like the kind of one that, and like people were requesting, and we knew we weren't going to be able to, like, you know, we didn't want to go back and basically, like, you know, it'd be a huge amount of work to kind of retrofit a lot of that stuff into Röki. So
Sure.
so we already had the seed of that for like the next thing. But yeah, the control remapping was a big one. The other one was like more dialogue options. So the game is really dialogue heavy. I think that's the thing. If you're an indie developer looking at, you know, you're making a game, I think the best thing to do is try and get that stuff in early and like at the start of the game. So much easier to add. So yeah, and so there's probably a few key ones we have with Mythwrecked. One, we have a sprint toggle. So basically, we've got at the moment, it's the same as Röki. If you hold down a button, Alex will sprint, and if you let go, they'll stop sprinting. So we've added in, like, for people who struggle with holding up buttons, we added in toggle. So basically, you can just press it once, and they'll run until they'll sprint until they hit something to interact with. But yeah, a big amount of our efforts are in the dialogue stuff. So having the, you know, button press to progress, or having the auto progress, being able to change the speech bubble from light to dark, the auto progress speed. So there's a whole load of things. I mean, and also, so there's that stuff. There's also making sure there's a baseline of actually, like, the game is, you know, accessible. You know, so text should never be piddly and small anyway for anyone. And so yeah, it's making sure that, and most of our games have no time pressure or kind of time-based peril. So that there's kind of like, you know, you don't need fast reaction times to play our games anyway. So there's kind of but yeah, I think, like, obviously you need to tailor your efforts to what your capabilities are. And I think the important thing is just always learn. I'm sure there's the stuff we learned on Mythwrecked, which we'll then take into our next game. I think that's the thing about this thing, is like, yeah, always looking to learn and to improve, and you can only do what you can do.
Yeah.
And there's like definitely some stuff that we would have liked to do that we won't get a chance to do. Yeah, right, we'll take that on to the next one. But yeah, I would definitely advise anyone starting off their next indie game to look at that stuff early, because it's so much easier to put that stuff in at the start, the foundations, than it is to try and retrofit it.
Yeah, because I think that is the issue that a lot of indie game outlets come into. They start getting those requests from people maybe who've played a demo or something, and then they, like you say, they either have to rethink a lot of things or just not do it and possibly disappoint some people who would otherwise have been into playing it. But I mean, it must be difficult as an indie outfit to try and cater to all of this, and obviously you want to and make sure that everyone can play your game, but it must just be very tricky sometimes to have to deal with all of that and balance it.
Yeah, it is in some ways. I think there's definitely, like, there's some things that, you definitely are beyond our thing. I think one which we'd kind of love to be able to have done, like I think looking at people with lower levels of vision, and how I think that's, for us, would be a really big challenge, and how we could implement some things to help them in our game, which, and Mythwrecked in some ways has got more freedom of exploration than Röki had. So, but I think, as developers with anything, if you're kind of open and transparent and honest about what you've done, why you've done it, what your restrictions are, and what you'll try and do better next time, I think I would hope people wouldn't take much issue with that. Now I think everyone will kind of you'll be able to understand that. So I think everything, like if someone finds a bug, it's got, I'm really sorry. Well, I think
yeah.
I think people appreciate just being open and honest about what you're doing, and the fact, I think, and that's the thing is, like, with all this stuff, is we should be applauding all the efforts that people are making, and it is very much something that's more at the forefront of a lot of indies' minds, and just encouraging people to go, brilliant, let's maybe do even more next time and do even more next time. So yeah, I think it's a journey for everyone, but I think that's the nice thing about making games and indie games, is like always learning new stuff, and that's I think it's a really exciting area.
Yeah, and I think it's I think that awareness, and like you said, that the openness is definitely good. I mean, I am reminded, unfortunately, of like a reviewer who recently, there was an updated feature on Alan Wake 2, and that was a sort of accessibility thing. It was to change how some of the lights worked, because to make it less likely to cause seizures. Unfortunately, the way they wrote the headline was as if it was to stop people who were scared, because I don't think they were aware that it was an accessibility. Right. It caused a bit of a social media stir, but I think it's just having that awareness sometimes. But I imagine it's also difficult because especially I don't know with you, Rachel. It's sometimes you must be having to like write about so many different things, and sometimes it must be difficult to just keep on top of things and knowing exactly what you're sort of working on in a way. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that story in particular, but definitely there's time pressures. Mistakes are made quite frequently. So yeah, I guess it was just a miscommunication, maybe on the part of the developer. I'm not sure. I don't think they purposely went out of their way to do that. But
no, that's the thing.
Right? Sometimes it's like, maybe take another half an hour to just do your due diligence as a journalist. But sometimes it's not possible, which is unfortunate. But
I guess, do you ever wonder about in terms of putting something out there, and because there is this real focus sometimes on games and journalists, and almost it seems to be almost kind of wanting them to trip up a little bit sometimes, so that people can share it, and there does seem to be sometimes a little bit of that. And are you ever I don't know, just concerned that like you say, just a simple mistake, who knows if that was a mistake or not, but it could just get a reaction, and how do you deal with that?
It is interesting, like working as a journalist, because of this tension between people who write about games and people who play games, because games are for everyone. There is not that divide like there was with, like, I don't know, classical music. We know all about this topic and you don't. We're here to inform. Like, everyone can engage with video games however they like. So of course there's going to be that tension and contention between players and journalists. I find the most outspoken people online to be the most entitled. I've definitely have stopped when, being a young woman on the internet writing about video games when I was younger. It was my comment sections were a trash fire of just garbage people. It's not like that anymore, and it's definitely the communities that websites create. Obviously Twitter does not help or whatever. I think it's gotten a lot better, but it depends on who you write for, how the site manages their community like that. But I think that's always going to be something. But at the same time, it's interesting because I don't like that aspect about it, but I do like that everyone could talk about video games on the same level. Yes, okay, it's my job, I'm paid for it, but also my opinion as a critic, I like the fact that we can share these opinions together. Video games are for everyone, and having these kind of conversations is what, to be honest, is about coming back to film. Like, I liked that with film, that I think there used to be quite a sniffiness about it being a film critic. I don't get that with video games. I like that the playing field's a bit more even, and so it's also good but kind of bad, and I mean, that's the internet in general though, isn't it?
It's just I think you just summed up the internet there.
Oh
dear. And
but it is a complex relationship.
Oh yeah,
it is complex.
I imagine it must be in it. And like you say, it must totally depend on where it's put out. And sometimes I imagine how just something is worded. And I even get that sometimes.
Absolutely.
You post something and someone gets the wrong idea that what you're trying to say is like, no, I didn't mean that at all. But yeah,
absolutely. From my perspective, it's like readers. I don't mind if they disagree with me. The people I don't want to piss off, obviously, are the people who are making games.
Sure.
Like, I love your work. If there's something that I've missaid or misspoke, like, I want to have that conversation. That's a conversation I'm willing to have. Readers, unfortunately, I'm good. But it's the people who are making these games. Like, that's where my passion's coming from. And so if that's ever an issue, I think every journalist agrees that is the priority, that conversation. Unfortunately, read it. Sometimes it's important, but often, as I said, being a woman online, a queer woman online, maybe not as much. So yeah.
I get that. Don't worry, I get it. I was going to say, in terms of, because we're talking about sort of the different platforms there and social media. Alex, with you, in terms, how important is it to use all these different platforms to get Mythwrecked out there? Have you been, like obviously TikTok and Instagram and everything? Are you
Blue Sky
now, Mastodon? Like how far do you go? How important is it?
So we've tried out quite a few of them, and I think like a lot of people get like quite good traction on TikTok. I kind of probably should go back to it. I mean, I think it's just doesn't really like mesh with me. Like I think some of the formative aspects of it, maybe I just wasn't in the mood at that point. But yeah, I think we tried all of them. We
relatable.
Tried Blue Sky, Mastodon, Twitter, because we refused to call it the other name, is ultimately like in terms of like marketing and stuff, still the best thing for us. I think that's when things go off or get a bit of traction, they will kind of on Twitter. And there's nowhere else has really replicated that for us. I mean, in terms of like marketing efforts, one of the really key things for us, probably the one that is way better than Twitter, is Steam events. Basically, Steam events that hit the front page of Steam. Things like Ludonaricon.
Oh right, yeah.
They Save and Sound, which is a music-based one. We're in Tiny Teams, which starts tomorrow. And so, in terms of like, building traction and Wishlist, those Steam events are probably the kind of the biggest thing. And it's kind of nice in some ways because they're kind of very open. Everyone's trying to get into. But yeah, I mean, I kind of have I'm sure like most people, I kind of like a kind of hot cold relationship with social media. I like it, but I mean, most of the stuff I share is like, here's a picture of a chip butty. Here's like some game stuff we're doing. Here's like a picture of a sunset. I think like you kind of aware of like all the nasty stuff that happens on there, which is not great. But generally, I think I'm very much a kind of positive mindset person. I think looking at actually, I've now been able to connect with indie developers all around the world. I've exchanged messages the other day with indie team in like Argentina who were thanking me for like sharing some of their posts, and I picked up a copy of their game. We're chatting. I think that is just amazing, and especially as being a sad man who works in a room, to be able to no, it's true. To be able
connection.
I think it's a really really nice thing, and like
I get it.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something really really nice there, and I think and separate from getting like a lot of people I've never met in person, but have definitely camaraderie there. And always, I think the nice thing about the indie community and like everyone in that sphere, getting press, everyone's always willing up for a chat and help out people if they're struggling with something. And so definitely I take a lot of comfort in that sense of online community.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the nice thing about the indie sphere, that the people working in it are generally pretty nice. They're pretty lovely. To sort of close this off, I just wanted to know if there's anything sort of anything you wishlisted recently that you're looking forward to that's maybe coming out in the sort of next few weeks or months. I mean, if you're thinking, I will say I'm looking forward to. We're talking about sort of adventure games. I'm looking forward to the Crimson Diamond, which is coming out mid-August.
I literally just saw that today.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which is kind of like a text parser game, like the retro ones of old. I did speak to Julia It's kind of a plug to the previous episode because I did speak to Julia Minamata from it, but I am genuinely looking forward to it. It's not just me saying that, but because I just love the art style. You know, speaking of, I guess like wanting, I suppose it definitely does help an indie game along. Thinking of like thank goodness you're here as well. It definitely does help if the art style pops and you know makes you just go like, what is that? Because I think sometimes you don't get that as much with AAA games because it's all about, you know, looking kind of solid and normal. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if there's anything you guys are. It doesn't have to be August, but I guess just in the next.
I think Farewell North's out soon, and I was demoing next at the Scottish Games Week, and so cool. I spent like a couple of days just eyeballing their game, salivating. Yeah, it's really nice, and they're really lovely people as well. So that's really exciting, and yeah, Julie's game looks great. I think there's the Hollow Body. It's like I don't know how and Rosewater and Locomotive. There's a whole load. I mean,
Locomotive. Yes. So funny.
Yeah.
That one crossed my mind as well. Actually, that's one that I don't think has a release date just yet, but I think it should be this year. Oh, so funny.
Yeah, I mean, and that's quite what I do like about the indie space. Like it does, you know, have these kind of quirky games, but also like just really beautiful looking games, and like the amount of effort and detail that goes into these. Like, I'm Phoenix Springs as well. Actually, I'm looking forward to that. I can't wait.
Yes,
that looks again.
That's a good one.
Really interesting looking game.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add. I should ask you really, Alex, since I've built all this up, when do you think Mythwrecked might be coming out? I know this is a question game devs hate, but
no, so we're kind of like we're definitely on the finishing straight, and there's a few things left on it, but it'll definitely be out this year.
Nice.
So late this year. So, but no, it's really exciting. We've been getting lots of user testing, and all the localizations have gone in. So we're just banging some of the UI with a spanner to try and get it to fit some of the German translations.
Oh gosh,
but yeah, no. So it's an exciting time. We'll see how things line up for the exact date. But yeah, I'm really excited to get it in the hands of everyone.
Exciting, and I'll drop all the links for that below. And I guess Rachel, if people want to check you out or check your work out, where's best for them to go?
Probably just follow me on Twitter. God, I hate that. But also yes, podcast Indieventure. If you like indie games, please listen to the podcast.
Great.
I'm on there screaming, shouting, throwing up.
Yeah, you are always very keen, and I love it.
Yes, I'm a very energetic person.
Love it. Great. I mean, that's what the world needs. So, but yeah, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you popping on for a little chat about all things indie. And looking forward to Mythwrecked, and looking forward to the next Indieventure podcast episode.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yes.